Coming up on Man Enough.
I think the Kens represent the patriarchy, that you lose either way, and who actually represents men is Alan.
You think that most men relate to Alan?
To me, what Alan represents is who men could be, which is individuals. He clearly wants the best for the Kens and the Barbies, but that he's an outsider to both groups. And I think a lot of men feel that way, right? That they grew up seeing what masculinity is quote unquote supposed to be. And they're like, I'm not that. And I don't fit into that. And then I like women, but I'm not a woman. So who am I?
Being man enough, what does that mean?
It's really manly to mess up, admit you're wrong, and then grow.
I couldn't accept that I was evil. So maybe I'm broken, but those broken things could be corrected.
Intimacy between a father and a son is me just wanting to put my head in your lap.
I love you, son.
You haven't called me benevolent sexist, but my experience is women are better.
Even if it's a positive, it's still not equality.
I don't blame men for that. I just blame the system.
This
Is
Man Enough.
welcome everybody to the Man Enough podcast. I am Jamey Heath.
I am Liz Plank, but I will only be referred to as Barbie.
Okay, with that,
From now on.
I don't know if I can call you Barbie. We got to talk about that. This is the Man Enough podcast.
It is.
And we are here to talk about fun things like masculinity and how we can be better humans, how to be better men, how to champion women, how women might even be better. How can you help men? How the vice versa, all of that. And we're going to have a special episode.
Yes,
Because you're wearing pink.
I am.
We are going to discuss, not give a review about Barbie.
No.
But we're going to just talk about how we're feeling about it. And in
Yes.
fact, so I can stand in solidarity with
Oh.
you, girl. I got a little something here.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Let me put it on
whipping
right.
it. Wow. For people who are listening to this and not seeing this, but please go to YouTube and watch this. Jamey just whipped out a hot pink blouse and just put it around his neck in a very Ken fashion.
It's your blouse, by the way. I took it,
It
from
is
your
mine. It is mine.
from your dressing
But
room.
I'm very touched that you're wearing it.
Hey, my favorite color growing up was hot pink.
It was?
This exact color.
Did you feel like you could say that?
Yeah, sure. I had no problem.
You weren't
Yeah,
you weren't
I
like
used to
that's
wear-
for girls. I can't.
No. Hot pink. I loved hot pink.
Oh wow, that's nice.
Dark emerald green is now my favorite color. It's been from my adult life, but my teenage years and kid youth
I mean,
ages.
same. That's why we get along.
There it is. So you just said to call you Barbie.
Mm-hmm.
All right, can I talk about that for a
Yeah.
minute? I can't call you Barbie
Why?
because if I ever would have called a woman Barbie, I would have been slapped.
Yes, I think
Any
like 10
man,
days ago.
that would have been like, what the heck? How can you reduce a woman? I feel like a woman would have said, don't reduce me to a doll and to an object, to a thing, a sexual this or that, or Barbie's meant to be like, especially stereotypical Barbie as a blonde bimbo, this. I'm not saying that blondes are that, but that was the narrative.
Yeah.
So to call someone a Barbie would be belittling a woman. And you're telling me I can call you Barbie. That's confusing for me.
I understand that. Look, 10 days ago, I hadn't thought about Barbie for the last 20 years, and now I would take a bullet for her. I've become more defensive of her than I can't even remember feeling this passionate about defending a fictional toy, right? Of like a fictional character, and especially one that I have felt uncomfortable with for most of my life. You know, I'm with you where, Barbies were like contraband in my house. I was not allowed to, we weren't allowed to buy Barbies. They could only be like acquired from, neighbors. I kind of had like the weird Barbies coming through. Remember the weird Barbie in the movie that's all, screwed up. So we would get those and we would play with those, but I knew that Barbies were bad, right? And my mom, it was for the very obvious reason that she didn't want me to, have body image issues or again, limit
all
myself to that, right? So, but the Barbie movie addresses that. I think that is still a really valid criticism for a lot of people who are feeling this way. I think that for me, the experience of watching the movie, and especially in those first few minutes where she's extremely feminine, right, and extremely stereotypical Barbie, I had this sort of, I was wrestling with myself where I was like, oh, I'm uncomfortable, but she's also empowered. But why do I think she's not powerful because she's wearing pink? We all have internalized sexism, right? We all, swim in the same water where femininity is below
Okay.
masculinity, and feminine things are devalued in our society. And so femininity in general, because of that, it doesn't just make men devalue it, it makes women devalue it too, and devalue ourselves. And so there, again, just the idea that I could be minimized by you drawing attention to my appearance, which is a real thing in our society, right? Like that doesn't happen to men. We don't think lesser of a man because he's good looking, or again, sort of fitting into the standards of masculine, like a good masculine appearance. Why do we do it to women? And so I started wondering. I was like, did I hate Barbie because she's a woman? Like, have I just been like?
I don't think
did I
that's it.
internalize all of this?
I don't think you did.
I mean,
I think that's so. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say, part of the movie is about reclaiming the story that, Mattel claims is how it all happened, which was they're saying that the doll wasn't this, sex object. It was supposed to be the first time that girls were allowed to play or given a toy that was a real, that was a woman that wasn't a mother, right? Or that wasn't making them a mother because it was a baby doll.
So, first of all, I really enjoyed the movie. I have no problem with the movie.
Okay.
Well, not true.
Were there parts that made you uncomfortable?
No, nothing made me uncomfortable.
I mean, there are parts that made me uncomfortable.
No, it didn't make me uncomfortable. I thought the movie was well done. It's fun, all that. I do have some concerns with how much we're making it some sort of symbol.
Okay.
And I know that you're one that's championing it, so I'm not at all thinking you're wrong. I mean, I'm learning so much from you, so I have an open mind to it. And part of this is coming from the perspective of being a black man, having daughters who don't look like stereotypical Barbie. Because so no matter how much we made and gave light to the other Barbies, this poster child is still stereotypical blonde Barbie, skinny body, this, that.
Margot Robbie, the most.
Margot Robbie. So we're saying Barbie can be anyone, but the symbol is Barbie, Margot Robbie. So when my daughter, who has curly hair, who's brown skin, and wears this on her head like this. Anyone who can see I'm putting on, so she can have long flowing hair. And it's never a black towel or a black shirt. It's blonde or white thing or something of that nature because she wants to look like Anna and Elsa and now Barbie. Right. Which means that she doesn't embrace, and to her, my beauty is not what I am. My beauty is that, even though I won't want her to think that her worth is her beauty, but still she's in a world and there's that. Yeah. So I still fear that just like my wife has an aversion to Disney characters because of the stereotypical, like she grew up thinking I have to look like that and that is the standard to look like Ariel and the likes. I feel like, does this now offer that same thing that our kids are going to go out, women are going out and still think that's the standard. Yeah. Even though the movie addresses all that, it's still, Now, if I see a thick, someone else woman walking down the street claiming to be Barbie and it's changed that narrative and now those Barbies are flying off the shelf, but I don't think those Barbies are flying off the shelf. I think the Barbies that are flying off the shelf are probably the Margot Robbie looking ones.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, the film...
And not there's anything wrong with Margot Robbie looking like how she looks. She is beautiful and wonderful and all that and should be championed.
Yes. But. No, and I totally agree, right? It in a way, it whitewashes or whatever, right? The actual, doll and the history of the toy, which in the movie it's cast very, in a very diverse way. There's a trans Barbie. There's a woman who's trans who's playing one of the Barbies, and there's every size and
ethnicity
it's very diverse in that way. But that's not representative of actually to your point, right? I think the first Black Barbie was like in, I don't know the number, but like late. Yeah, like the 70s. And even then there was one, right? It wasn't like there were many options to be white and many different ways to, sort of exist within that.
Imagine if the posters that were out were not Margot Robbie.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if all the posters were people of different colors, of different sizes, different shapes. And that was now the new way that we see Barbie. Yeah. I might feel a little bit different.
I mean, some of the posters, I will say, like, I feel like I've seen a lot of those because my feed is all Barbie right now. It's just Barbie. And and a lot of people's it is, right? It's done super well. A lot of, it's an incredibly successful film, and a lot of people, are seeing it. A lot of people are talking about it, right?
So why? Tell me,
Yeah.
can you do me this?
Yeah.
And for those who maybe have not seen it,
Sure.
give us a 60-second, like just bite size enough trailer. What's the movie about?
The movie is about really, the history of Barbie and this sort of projection into the future, sort of utopia of Barbie Land, where Barbie has kind of fixed everything and fixed sexism. And she's living in Barbie Land amongst, Kens and other Barbies. And it's not presented as a feminist utopia, but that's kind of the undertone of it, where women do all the jobs, full Supreme Court is female, the White House is pink, and you sort of see this very sort of happy world for women. And the Kens just do beach. That's their job. So men actually don't have jobs and women have all the jobs, which I would argue is not a feminist utopia. It's
Agreed.
just the patriarchy flipped. And so a lot of people have been angry about that portrayal because I think that they are angry at patriarchy, or they think they're angry at feminism, but they're actually angry at patriarchy and what this power dynamic that it creates between the genders. Then Barbie goes into the real world and realizes, oh my God, the world has not been fixed. It's actually very sexist over there. Ken decides to bring sexism back, patriarchy basically, to Barbie Land, takes over Barbie Land. Barbies have to revert to submissive roles, and now the Kens are in charge, and they steal and oppress the women. And it ends with them realizing, that they want an equal or egalitarian world. And particularly the ending is very man enough. Heavy
Why?
or
Tell me why
has
it's man enough.
enough vibes, because Barbie encourages Ken to discover who he really is and how he feels, and to figure out an identity that doesn't include Barbie, or that doesn't include his Mojo Dojo Kaza house, right? Like how much money he has, or what house he owns, or which woman he's dating. That he go on this kind of journey of self-discovery, and that's necessary for the project of equality.
Okay.
Is that a good summary?
I think that's a great summary.
That was pretty long, but
no,
it's
that was
a
not long.
complex movie. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, I would have to see it again to maybe articulate in the way you did, but one time was enough for me.
So some of the criticisms that, it's a 2-hour commercial and Greta Gerwig sold out. It's like we never say that about superhero movies. We never said that about Transformers and Star Wars and, the male directors who do those movies. So I think it's really exposing everyone's perceptions and biases when it comes to women's interests, when it comes to women-created films and films that focus on women. It's really blowing the lid, right? I think it's a great movie. I think that the conversation that we're having, because of it, is even more rich and
But could you
important.
think that, so a month ago, it would have been fair if someone like yourself, and most people would have been like, oh yeah, I don't want any Barbies. I think Barbie represents a terrible thing.
Yeah.
We all would have been in solidarity on that, for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know many parents that let their kids play with Barbies anymore.
Yeah.
Prior to them right now.
Sure.
Now, Mattel is certainly doing well.
For sure.
Good for them, okay, for their business. But some people are arguing that this is a great way. Let's use patriarchy. Let's use sexism, and everyone's feeling about that, so that Mattel can do better in business. I think that's been some of the narrative. It's not that there's pure intentions behind this. It's that let's do something and flip the script a little bit and make Barbie a poster child for feminism. And that's not really the pure intention. The intention is so that Mattel
It's a
can do
movie.
better.
The point of a movie is to make money, right? Why would
Sure, but
she
we're not
need to be
taking
more
we're
like,
not taking Transformers or Star
Right.
Wars and trying to change people's minds about some sort of society ill,
well,
and change the culture, because there was nothing
but
ill
those
against.
films do. I would argue like those films do change culture. All films
No,
change
they
culture.
do, but they don't change it in terms of
The only
like
reason
an oppressed people.
But the only reason why the Barbie movie seems that transformational is because it's showing something equal, right? Or it's really valuing again femininity and womanhood. And the only reason why that's radical is because all of the other movies don't. Like, I would love for the Barbie movie to just be like every other movie.
Maybe we jump to how this affects men or how men are portrayed.
So,
because
I'm curious what you think, because there's been kind of stories about men walking out of the movie theater.
Yeah, because here's why.
Yeah.
Which I was actually more interested in the patriarchy and the story to be able to see it. But here's what I got.
Yeah.
In the beginning of it, men were not seen as valuable.
Yes.
Then it flipped. Now men are assholes.
Mm-hmm.
Right, when it flipped, which, of course, he brought patriarchy back to the Barbie world. And now we're jerks.
Yeah.
And then even when it equals out a little bit, we're still dummies.
Yeah.
So I walk in the movie like, well, that wasn't any sort of representation of men.
Yeah.
Like, okay. But I get the point. Sometimes there's caricatures so that you can make a point.
Yeah.
But of course men would walk out, a lot of them, if we're thinking like at the expense. Why does it have to be at the expense of men and our strength and our nobility and our brilliant minds to then champion and recognize what women are going through and then your brilliant selves?
Yeah.
That's what I did walk away from. I didn't see anything that my son would be like, oh yeah, there's men in there that represent me.
Yeah. I think that Ken is the least free character of the Barbie movie. In many respects, even when the Kens are subservient or whether they're dominating, their entire identity is determined by how other people view them and whether they obey them, right? And to me, Ken's... So I felt the same way. When I watched it the first time, I wasn't upset, but I was disappointed because I thought, here we go. Detractors of feminism already think that we're trying to oppress men, and now they're going to use the Barbie movie as an example, and people are going to think that that's what feminism is. Barbie Land at the beginning of the movie is not feminism. It's patriarchy. And I sympathize with men who sat there and were like, this sucks. Yeah, either I'm, kind of just do beach and I'm not really important, or I'm a jerk. And I wish that it had lasted a little bit longer. I wish that she'd gone into what does it mean to be Kenough, which I would love to know if you feel Kenough and when was the last time that you felt Kenough? And what does it mean to be Kenough?
I have no idea what that even means.
But I think that Kens don't represent men. I think that Kens represent the patriarchy, right? That you lose either way. And who actually represents men is Alan. Like, Alan is who men could be without the patriarchy. And
see, that's a tough one, too.
Why?
Look.
Alan, to me, is the most manly of all of them.
Come on.
Alan is like, I would want to have Alan on Man Enough. 100%.
Sure. Oh, I'm not saying Alan wasn't wonderful and all great and all that stuff. You think that most men relate to Alan?
I think that we've seen some of the commentary online, and a lot of the comments in our own.
Let me make sure that I know who Alan. Let me just make sure we're talking about the same person. Alan,
Michael Cera,
the short blonde,
Ken's best friend,
who
Ken never addresses.
Who a lot of people are saying is gay, or could be gay, or represents gay.
Mm-hmm. Which says a lot, that the only male character who doesn't try and destroy the women is.
Yeah, which is why
gay.
a lot of men are offended by it. So what you're saying is that if I'm straight and I'm not that, so in order to care about femininity,
women,
feminism, I then it has to be a gay man?
No, I don't think so. So Alan is actually not gay.
He may not be gay.
But the assumption that he is because he doesn't try and, oppress women, I think speaks to, masculinity and internalized the sort of homophobia.
But that's the problem,
element.
Liz, because then when you have a lot of men who like brute strength, who like playing football, who like being a certain thing that's okay to be. They like riding horses and fishing and all whatever it is that they think represents some masculinity. That character did not represent that. So that means to them, in order to be on the side of women, for women, and want patriarchy to look different, I have to be that guy?
I mean, Alan beats up like 20 construction workers. He's the only one who actually does show a physical strength to defend women.
I get that.
And protect women.
But that's a far cry for you to say that Matthew McConaughey wants to be that guy.
I don't know who Matthew McConaughey
or would want, or that's the or whoever. A lot.
The thing, though, that was interesting about Alan is that a lot of men have told me about this feeling of feeling like an outsider within their own gender. You know, Alan, it's not as much like what he's wearing or what he looks like. It's more that he clearly wants the best for the Kens and the Barbies, but that he's an outsider to both groups. And I think a lot of men feel that way, right? That they grew up seeing what masculinity is quote unquote supposed to be. And they're like, I'm not that. And I don't fit into that. And then I'm also, you know, I like women, but I'm not a woman. So who am I? And to me, what Alan represents is, again, who men could be, which is individuals, right? The whole line about there's only one Alan.
Right.
You know, and he's the only one who actually, like that, Helen Mirren, the narrator, says that. And he's the only one who ever addresses the narrator. So there's like a self-awareness there too. Like, again.
I get that they wrote that character to be the one.
Or not. I don't know. That's my interpretation, you know.
I just think for men.
Yeah.
And I know there are a lot of men that like the movie. But I think your average man who's taking issue with it, is that had they been represented in the movie and didn't require them, in order to be for women, you have to be more like Alan. You could still be, you know, they could have, I don't think it did a great service for representing a man to feel safe and secure and like, oh, okay, I'm valued and I'm good as I am. And
right. Well, it ended at the beginning of the journey of Ken going on that journey. But I agree, they don't show what sort of happens. But that's that conversation between him and Barbie, where she says, I want you to go figure out who you are separate from me. So she's kind of leading him, you know, towards and sort of encouraging him to go on that. But I would love a Ken sequel where it's just about the Kens and those internal dynamics and internal, you know, again, it's these conversations are hard. Right?
Yeah.
I would be curious to see what happens.
I like it. Look, no matter what, I like it because there's a conversation around it.
Yes.
The movie's out. No matter where you stand on it, you're talking about patriarchy. You're talking about sexism. You're talking about whether you like it or not or disagree with it and you weren't represented in the film and you don't feel that represented true men necessarily, that because even like Will Ferrell, who I love, you know, all of those characters also were just like one tone and superficial, and that's what women characters have been forever. Yeah, but I mean, but that's all of them, and yet there's a lot of men that are like, I wouldn't have been like that in the boardroom. Well, that's how I feel. Like, what the hell are we doing? But that's how women feel when they watch so many movies. So I think the role of Barbie wasn't to represent men; it was to show men how women feel when they watch movies, and how one tone and sort of the whole complex female character thing that came about a few years ago. You know, we didn't have complex roles and sort of complex characters. It was often very stereotypical. And so, again, I'm happy men are angry, but that anger is not at feminism. That anger is at being treated the way that women are treated. I agree. And having hopefully, but again, I understand that it takes But don't we want men to embrace the idea that it's okay to be a feminist? That it doesn't mean, therefore, it doesn't mean this. And we've been doing so much work to be like, well, look, do you believe in equality? Okay, well, then you're a feminist. You believe that women should have equal rights to men and that they're as valued as us and they're as smart and wonderful and brilliant and seen in the same spirit as God as equal and all that stuff? Then you're a feminist. Do you want us to change laws so that they're not making less money than us and we're all equal? If you think that, okay, you're a feminist. Great. And some men are now going, oh, okay. Actually, yeah, I can stand for feminism. Okay. I'm good. And then they see the movie and they're not represented there. And then it feels like we're being dismissed as men. So how good is this movie doing for your average man to further embrace feminism? To me, it's like remember that social experiment that Jane Elliott she did it on the Oprah show. And then she did it, in a bunch of different ways where she was treating white people the way that
we treat Black people.
Right.
And she started off doing it just with brown eyes and blue eyes in her in her classroom. And she was like, the blue-eyed people are, bad, and the brown-eyed people are good, and the blue-eyed people get to leave class earlier, and they get better marks for doing less work, right? She's giving them an example of truly experiencing discrimination, and you see them really fully have that, the emotional breakdown, and it creates that kind of empathy, right? That I would, I can't know what it's like to be a Black person in the world. But if someone I did actually a workshop where, with Rachel Ricketts, if people want to do these kinds of workshops, she's amazing, where she kind of does that. She kind of treats white people the way that Black people are treated, where our comfort is not prioritized. We don't get to ask questions. We don't get to sit in the same area, right? And that actually, again, made me angry. But if I'm able to sit with that anger and sit with that discomfort, I'm like, what am I angry about? Oh, right, I'm angry at inequality. I'm angry at discrimination. And this happens to people of color all the time. And in ways that I didn't see or notice or understand, but now that I'm literally experiencing it, it's like a different thing. So I would hope, again, I understand that at first you feel defensive. There are parts of the movie that didn't sit well with me, and I'm not even a man. But if you're able to sit with that discomfort and think about why you're uncomfortable, I think that you'll realize that what you're deeply uncomfortable is again with inequality and with oppression. And hopefully that makes you realize, like, I don't want anyone to ever feel this way.
Agree.
And to stand with women, and for us to build a real egalitarian society, and not build Barbie Land, right? Like, people are saying, Barbie Land is a matriarchy, or it's feminism. Matriarchy actually is completely different from patriarchy. They're not inverted. It's fundamentally different systems. Yeah. And I think that people think, well, our world is patriarchal, so all we know is a world that's built around hierarchies and order and competition. And so we think if women take over, it's going to be order, competition, and women at the top and men at the bottom. But actually, it's a whole different system. It's not a hierarchy, it's a circle. And, motherhood tends to be at the center. And that's the sort of locus of the society, which means that everyone is a parent, and and that includes men, and children belong to everybody. And so it creates a world that's more kind and caring for the environment, because it's a woman. And because we value women, we're going to treat her differently. And you could argue that one of the reasons why we do treat the planet as a commodity and as something to extract and exploit, and it's our own environment. Like, we're like trashing our own house because we, if we called it Father Earth, maybe we would have more respect for it.
I think for me, if this movie, let's say it wasn't Barbie, let's say it was called whatever, Plant, and it was the same movie, the same symbol, the same narrative, the same story about how there's this utopian world, and we flipped it on its head and exposed it, and then now it ended up with this, equal opportunity for all people movie. That would be great. We've taken a symbol, Barbie, I think, for so many people, that has been seen as something that is not necessarily the best representation of humanity, and we've used that to tell that story.
I think that's why it's even
not
more
the story itself that word.
But also, would people have seen that movie in such
maybe
big
not
numbers? Right.
That's a fair point, which is why I guess Barbie is used. But that's, I think, where there's some rub. Is Barbie has been, I've been told my whole life, Barbie is does not represent us. It's actually women like yourself that have been like, no, don't call me Barbie. I'm not that. And now you're telling me, call me Barbie, and this now represents me, and this stands for this. And that's really super confusing for a lot of men, I think. Even for women. I know women in our office, some that are fully championing it, and some that are like, yeah, this is
for
tough
sure.
For me.
I think there's also a generational gap. I mean, I know me and my mom, don't feel the same way. Right. And I think that it is not just about Barbie, right? That it's, I think that for women who are maybe older, there's a danger in fully embracing femininity in that way. And again, fully embracing a symbol. I mean, and to a certain extent, I think this was the reaction to some people being like, Playboy's feminist now, and, or even female empowerment and fully, owning your sexuality, I think is something that is very different from the way that my mother feels about things.
That makes sense.
But so to me, it's young girls seeing themselves in a movie that, you know, where it is feminist, but it's really fun. It's very camp too. Like it's supposed to. I think a lot of people,
course.
right?
It's meant to be over the top.
Exactly. And again, I think the fact that so many people have had a reaction to it, I think all of the reactions that we're having to it, none of them are wrong.
Yeah, I think the discourse is great. I think there's some amazing things like her, the mother's speech.
America Ferrera.
Yeah. Her speech that she had said, I got to be skinny, but I also got to do this. I got to hold this down while also doing this. That whole soliloquy right there was, my wife was sitting next to me and she was going, yes. She was saying all this. Those were powerful moments. There's no way for me to take away the message that I gleaned from it. I think my only concern is just that it's coupled with a symbol that it took forever for us to get men to recognize that that is not the standard of a woman. So me as a boy and all my friends, you know the women that we were chasing? Barbie.
Yeah.
We were told that that's the perfect image.
Right.
Christy Brinkley's of the world, that was the image. White, blonde, skinny, pink, wonderful beauty. Black men, too, are told that's the prize. Not black women. Black women are not the prize. They are, by the way, but they're not perceived as such.
Sure.
And it's taken us all this time to undo that. And it's still not undone, but to now accept that, no, Barbie is not the standard, actually. And now we're championing other types of versions of women, or all versions of women, and that Barbie's not the standard. And now I feel like the next generation, that right now, my son and his friends are looking at the very, even though it was diverse, it still was highlighted in a certain way, the Barbie look. Does that now become a narrative? It's like, oh, that's the standard. That's the woman that I want to meet.
So if they would have done like Black Barbie as the main character, then you would be on board?
If it was Black Barbie or Asian Barbie or sure, that would change it a lot. If that was what the poster was, and that was the iconic ideal, and they called her stereotypical Barbie, even though people were like, that's not stereotypical, that's what we're claiming. Oh, that maybe would have been a bit different, but it's still now going back.
There would have been an insurrection, I think.
There
just given
there probably would have
the
been.
reaction
You're right.
to Margot Robbie.
We would have January 6th all over again.
Exactly.
I get that. But anyways, I'm just saying that's what's conflicting for me.
Okay.
It's conflicting for me,
Yeah.
for you to tell me to call you Barbie, as I said in the beginning.
But
Like,
see, to
that
me,
is
Barbie is like, I would call you Barbie. I'd be like, hi, Barbie, because that's what women.
You call me BK,
women,
Black Ken. I'm going to talk like that from now on.
Black Ken. Okay. To me, hi, Barbie is like, hey, like sister. Like it's like a
Now it
weird
is, Liz.
sisterhood. Yes.
You would have not said that a month ago.
No, absolutely not.
Oh,
Which
okay.
again, I think is really fascinating, and again, the power of that movie, and for me, it was reclaiming. Which again, I'm already pretty like leaning into feminine, ideals, right? I'm a girly girl, and I've always been that way, but I realized how much I would play that down in order to be taken seriously,
Okay.
and I was like, wow, that. And even this happened the day after I saw the movie. I had to go to the bank, and there was an issue, and I was, already kind of annoyed that I had to, go there. And I am dealing with a bank teller, and she's not, being incredibly helpful. And she has long nails, and she kind of has that bleached, sort of, she's very. This was in LA recently, and so she's very LA. I'll just put it that way, right? Like. Maybe she's had a few surgeries and she fits a certain, sort of standard of femininity that to me feels. I think before I saw the Barbie movie, I would say like, over a little bit over the top. And I'm waiting, and I realized in my subconscious, like I started hearing what was going on in my head, where I was kind of being dismissive of her. I was like, look at her, she can't figure out her stuff. She's kind of like, I was kind of thinking she was dumb because of her appearance, and because she was leaning into these sort of this very feminine way of dressing. And I caught myself, and I was like, wow, Liz, like,
But it wasn't.
whoa.
Was it just that?
Yes, it was. No, it was. It was actually a very confronting moment where I realized, like, oh, I'm thinking she's a little dumb.
She wasn't acting dumb.
She wasn't. Yeah.
But in the movie, it starts, she wakes up perfect. Everything's great. Hi, everybody. Hi, everyone. Hi, everything's perfect. She floats down. She lands perfectly, gets in the car. Hey, everybody. And even the dialogue was not that elevated.
Yes.
So when you're saying, yeah, you're having issues, me too, I was like, is this what we want women to be? Even though they're in power here and obviously it's flipped, women they have deeper conversations than just, hi, everything's great. I'm going to such and such. You know, I also got that feeling from it. I don't feel like had you woke up, I'm like, no, she would have woke up and she would have been real and she'd been like, how you doing today? And what'd you do today to make the world better? Or get on this. It's not like just floating. It all, I felt like it spoke to the very narrative of how we see what Barbie means. That's what I felt.
But
so
why,
that judgment I felt may have been justified.
But why do we perceive women to be superficial when they and we wouldn't make that assumption if a guy
we
acts
do.
that way?
Sure, we do. If a guy's come out and he's
but guys aren't assumed to be more fluffy and
I
superficial,
agree.
right? Even in the way that the movie, right? People say, "Oh, this is fluffy. This is like a pink thing."
if some dude
People are
wakes up,
dismissing it because
and he's
of that.
like, hey, dude, what's up? Just hanging out.
Yeah,
just
dude,
chilling.
where's my
Everything's
car?
perfect.
Like
right,
that-
and we say he's an idiot.
No,
one says, no men say that's the guy to model ourselves after.
I don't think that I don't think that we would dismiss that guy in the way that we would dismiss that
100%, Liz,
that
of
woman.
course, because certainly sexism hurts women. It doesn't hurt men. But
Yes, but
when men behave that way, like an airhead or not full of thought, we don't try to model ourselves after them. We know they're idiots.
yes, but
Dumb and Dumber or
but watch any movie before like 2005 and like women are just like portrayed in that way. And again, coming back to the bank teller, if my bank teller had been hot, I wouldn't and he was male, I wouldn't have assumed that he's dumb because he's hot. But because this woman had a certain appearance, I was assuming that she was dumb.
Oh, okay.
And that's the thing again, we don't do that. We do and it's
That's
subtle.
a real thing. Hold on a minute.
It's subtle.
So let me understand this. You're saying that men, because I don't share this,
Sure.
just because a woman is beautiful, we think she's dumb?
Yes.
I don't think that's true.
We assume that women
I think if a woman is, unfortunately, this is wrong of men, if they're dressed a certain way or behaving a certain way, then we assume they're dumb. Which is still unfortunate, but not just simply for being beautiful and walking in the room. A woman,
I do it. If there's a woman walking in with bleach blonde hair, let's say she has, again, big boobs, and has paid for them, and she's wearing a really tight skirt. Like I'm gonna think she's and versus a woman coming in a power suit that I'm gonna think she's like
because of Barbie,
and then maybe she'll prove me wrong
because of Barbie. Because Barbie's been portrayed.
How we view Barbie, it's not it's us.
Agreed, but because we've always portrayed blondes as being
dumb.
So that's been the narrative sent to all of us. So of course that's the first thing.
But Barbie wasn't never dumb. She did all these jobs. I mean, right? Like the fact that we think Barbie is a bimbo.
It's just because she's blonde.
No, it's because she's a woman. It's because she's a woman.
I don't know if that's all accurate.
Because even I'm realizing I'm so defensive and protective of Barbie, and I almost don't even, like, you're probably right in so many ways, but it is so funny how I feel so protective in a funny way.
Yeah.
Like but I don't even really know why.
I think it's something that I can look at too, because I feel like someone of your thinking, someone who is beautiful, someone who is super smart, who walks the world, who would a month ago have dismissed this idea, who is now embracing it. It's like, whoa, I got to look into that. There must be some truth there that I'm missing. And I'm not talking about the fact that it's exposing patriarchy. That is great.
Yeah.
I'm more just talking about the imagery of it and what it means. But I am very, very conflicted with this idea that men think pretty women are dumb.
Well, women are assumed to be dumber, period.
Okay, fine. Well, I appreciate us talking about it, because I think the dialogue itself is what's needed. I don't know if my son and my daughter, the oldest ones, have seen it.
Who did you see? Oh, you just saw it with your wife?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
I want them to go see it. My son's 20. My daughter's 33. Great. So I think my daughter's seen it. I do want them so that they're friends and they're having this discourse.
Yeah.
My son may go and be like, yeah, Dad, I didn't like that at all. And I'll be like, why?
Yes,
Talk
exactly.
about why.
Let's
or,
talk.
oh my gosh, I loved it.
Yeah.
I imagine that he's never going to say it only because he's my son and because he comes from a household that we have similar, shared agendas. But I do think that most people should go see it if for no other reason, so that we can have a discourse. We can discuss what we're uncomfortable with. We can discuss where there's some commonalities in areas. We can discuss why men do not feel seen in this movie. I think it's important because we do want change. And in order to have change, we need men to feel seen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean make excuses for them. We need them to not be defensive.
Yeah.
Just like I want race relations to change. And I know by using a broad brush and saying white people are racist or white people are bad, I'm not going to get anybody,
Of course.
So when you're like, okay, there's a lot of racism going on. No, y'all ain't bad. There's some racist tendencies that you carry along with you. Are you willing to have this conversation with here? That's much different.
Yes.
And no, Black people are not in the same position that we were 100 years ago or 200 years ago. Things are changing. I acknowledge that. But racism is still very, very much a part of our society. Right. Same with this. And I feel like this movie might alienate a lot of powerful men that would champion it if they could see themselves in it.
And I think that the Barbie movie is not anti-man, it's anti-patriarchy.
It is.
But because we are swimming in it, I don't think that men, and women too, but I don't think that men separate themselves from it. And that's what I would hope would happen, is that you watch that, and again, you say, I don't like this, I'm not that guy, I'm not that guy. And it's like, well, then who am I?
I did do that.
Right? Yes.
I was able to do that.
Yes.
For the most part.
Mm-hmm.
I do think there are men that are doing that because I do know some people that like it and talk about it.
Yeah.
I think your average man, I think many men may struggle doing that. But I don't care if they struggle or not. I don't care if a man doesn't feel seen in it. Talk about it. What are you uncomfortable about? Why are you uncomfortable about? Express your stuff.
Yes.
And then at least now we're having the discussion that you weren't having a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
You were just drinking a coffee like I am and pretending to care. But now at least you're invested for some reason. You got something to hate.
Mm-hmm.
If you do hate it.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that the slogan? If you love Barbie, you'll love this movie. If you hate Barbie, you'll love this movie. Is that it?
Oh, really?
Something
really?
like that.
That's it. Yes. I think if you're, and again, I want to reiterate that there were parts that made me uncomfortable too.
I know, because I know you.
Right? That's great art, right? That we're supposed to be critical and to disagree and to converse, and hopefully you're changing, I'm making you think about something new, and you're making me certainly think about a lot of new things. And that's the point. Like, I don't think that we're all supposed to have consensus over the Barbie movie.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's great that we're talking about it.
And I also don't think that we should make this movie the Holy Grail. Because I do think that
it is our Titanic. It is our Titanic.
We are starving for change. We're starving for people to champion something that changes the narrative of how women are treated in our world. And oftentimes, if you haven't eaten in a long time, someone gives you a piece of American cheese. It's not really cheese, but it's somewhat cheese. You're like, damn, this cheese is good. My gosh. And you start waving around like everybody's got to eat this cheese. But the truth is, it's just a piece of cheese because you're starving for something. But once you are satiated, now you're like, oh, I need some good cheddar now, and I need something else that's more elevated. So I don't want to say that this movie is the Holy Grail. I think it's just bringing up some stuff that's because we're starving for conversation and we're starving for change, that it's allowing for, something.
Yes. And again, that the reaction to it points to that starvation and how bad it's been.
That
right?
is a very good point. I hear that.
For a lot of women and girls, and how little things there are for them to point to where they do feel seen.
Yeah.
And so, more bring on the cheese. Let's all remember is something you've reminded me of on this podcast, which I didn't always do, which is remembering where everyone is on their journey. And that there are people who watch that who are 11-year-old boys who have never been told anything about sexism, or who don't, have never thought about it. And I've seen my friend yesterday showed me a DM from a teenage boy that he's kind of mentoring. And it was this super long DM about like, wow, I never thought about, the way that girls are treated, and like how different it is for me and now I'm thinking about these things, right? The America Ferrera monologue is a perfect example. For me, that monologue felt cheesy. Like I was like, for some women, it was tears and, a total tearjerker, right? So, and again, it's not that I'm advanced and they're not. It's just different things.
But you're in a space that you might hear that a lot. There might be a lot of women that are there that are not in the space that you're in every day.
And I'm privileged in that way.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, I think we can't underestimate who this is reaching and be like, well, this, needs to be perfect, or this needs to be more feminist, right? Like, I think things reach people in the way that they need to be reached, and maybe those people will eventually read a bell hooks book.
I hear that point. I do hear the point that what we don't want to do is you have an intention to make something that speaks about an issue that could possibly empower a group of people and also create change. And what we end up doing is find the 10, 20% flaw in it that now discredits the other 70, 80%, 90%. That's really great. Just like I might go give a talk tomorrow and I might have something really good in there, but someone might be like, oh, he wasn't articulate enough about this. He didn't know how to say this. He stumbled over his words on that. And it's like, what, did you not hear the spirit of what I was trying to say?
Yeah, exactly.
So I hear the point of like, what's the spirit of what's there? And go Barbie. I ain't going to call you Barbie.
I'm going to call you.
No, you can call me
Alan.
I'll be Alan. I'll be whatever. Whatever's about change, I'll be about it. Let me just try to be better every day.
I would, if there was a Jamey doll, I would get it for my daughter if I had one.
All right.
He has little podcast mic, little earphones.
I think this is a trick.
Little coffee.
I think women that are asking men that we can call you Barbie is a trick.
No. I get why you would feel that way.
Yeah.
So you're wondering.
Let's fast forward 2, 3, 4 months. Now, all of a sudden, now it's fine. And my son goes out and calls a woman, Barbie.
Mm-hmm.
No.
And some women might not want that. I mean, I'm not speaking on. I appreciate it. You can call me Barbie if you see me.
No, you're Liz, brilliant Liz. All right, let's wrap this up. We know we did a episode just on Barbie, really. But
we really did.
So thanks for walking with us and allowing us to have this conversation. If
you like what you hear, you can check us out at www.manenough.com/podcast or wherever you get your podcasts.
YouTube. You can see us on YouTube.
Yeah, on YouTube. Yeah, if you want to see Jamey's pink flare, you can go to YouTube and watch this. It's fun. We have a great crew. They really do a great job.
Thanks for joining us. Who are you?
I'm Liz Plank.
And I'm Jamey Heath. And I am Kenough.